So the other day on my birthday, one of the things I talked about in that long 3 hour live stream, and you can watch that. It's divided into chapters. So if you want to look at what I'm talking about here in its own video, um, I talked about the hintful romances, if you will. As a matter of fact, I'll look that up right now, hopefully with no issues, because I am recording this, not live streaming. Well, that's not it. Got the wrong video there. Here we go. Yeah, hintful romantic teases and cartoons. That'll probably be the title of this video here. And I mentioned a couple of, them that you see here on this image. I mean, for example, I go back to, Cubbi and Sunni, and I did a video about them, kind of updated 10 years in the making kind of video update. And I talked about the fact that they kind of fall under that same category, just being Cubbi and Sunni from Disney's Gummy Bears. They kind of fall under that same category as Simba and Nala from The Lion King. Because despite what version of Lion King you watch, basically when they're cubs, both Simba and Nala, basically, are a gasp, if you will. They kind of throw up in their mouths, if you will, at the thought that Zazu has put into their heads of, hey, when you get older, you're going to be betrothed to each other. You're going to be married. And they both kind of scoff at that. They laugh it off. They're disgusted by it because, they consider themselves best friends. They don't consider themselves any more than that. And also, and of course, I should say, we find out that later on what Zazu said about them, being betrothed together, being put together romantically, we see later on when they reunite, that indeed does happen. That indeed does happen in everything. So when I look at Cubbi and Sunni here, even though I knew Gummy Bears came out, basically 8 years before Lion King, or actually 9 years before Lion King, or 8.5, but 8.5 years before Lion King, and ended essentially 3 years before Lion King debuted. I know some people might say, well, it doesn't really apply to them. Well, the thing is, I think it does. Because, as I mentioned, Simba and Nala, as cubs, grew up in the same pride. They grew up in Pride Rock, under the same rock, if you will. And, and one could argue the fact that, them being together as they got older shouldn't be because of that fact that I just mentioned. But the truth is, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Basically, they didn't look at each other as siblings. They looked at each other as best friends. And we all know, in fiction, most times, best friends, even in real life, best friends, both male and female, will potentially, fall in love. They will fall in love with each other. And that's what happened. And to me, Cubbi and Sunni fall under that same kind of category, even though, like I mentioned, and others will point out, Gummy Bears came out, 8.5 years before and ended 3 years before. So, that shouldn't apply to them. But if you think about it, had Gummy Bears come out maybe around the time frame of Lion King, instead of almost a decade before, who's to say, who's to say that what was applied for Nala and Simba, in Lion King wouldn't have been applied to Cubbi and Sunni? Especially, let's say, if they wanted to revitalize the series, kind of do like a soft reboot like some shows and comics have done, to where it's the same continuity, but now the characters are older or time has passed. A good example of that is Biker Mice from Mars 2006. It's basically the same continuity, but it's a soft reboot, and it takes place years later. and Charlene and Vinny are now pretty much an interspecies, item, if you will. And everybody was always rooting for them. Everybody was always rooting for them, but we never really got anything, official, even at the end. There were hints. But we never really got anything truly official, and it takes this soft reboot, if you will, soft rebooted continuation, for it to pretty much be revealed that, oh yeah, her and Vinny did get together. Whoopee, And I think it's because of the fact that in the original finale of the original run, Charlene reminded him of Harley from Mars, who he also had a thing for, and she had a thing for him. So that there was that familiarity there. A similarity, if you will. And to me, I think that if Disney wanted to continue this series, in a soft rebooted, revamped kind of way, that I could see that happening. And I could see it happening because, as I've mentioned before, they fall under that same category that, that Nala and Simba fell under in Lion King. Again, just like Nala and Simba grew up together in Pride Rock, were basically raised under the same rock, if you will. Cubbi and Sunni, they grew up together in Gummi Glen. They were raised together in Gummi, under the same glen, under the same roof. And, just like Simba and Nala, they were not related, but they were, but okay, let me rewind this. All right. Like I said, when it came to Simba and Nala, they weren't, related or anything like that. They just happened to be under the same, be part of the same, pride, the same group of lions. They were kind of like a family. Cubbi and Sunni, same thing. They're not related. They're kind of best friends to each other. And they grew up and were raised within, in the same glen as part of the same clan of gummies, the Glen Gummies. So again, when you put that all into perspective, one cannot argue. Not argue. I shouldn't say argue, but one cannot debate the fact that this would not be a possibility, because it would be. And anybody listening to this, when you think about it, think about what I said here. Simba and Nala, the whole Pride Rock thing, being in the same pride, being raised under the same rock, and then you look at the similarities with Cubbi and Sunni. Again, all four characters, not siblings, kind of best friends, but all kind of raised within, the same family dynamic, if you will, but not blood related. And then yet you look at what happened with, Simba and Nala as they got older. Who's to say that wouldn't happen with Cubbi and Sunni? I'm just saying. So to me, honestly, even though they were very fleeting, there were moments in, Gummy Bears that kind of gave off that dynamic. I mean, honestly, why would they have Cubbi and Sunni always be, focused on in episodes, not just with Tummy by their side or the other gummies, but mostly on their own? Why would they do that? I mean, yes, it was to be appealing to the younger kids because they were kids themselves. But why go that far? Why do so many episodes, if you know what I mean? It's because they were, to me, they knew they had something that, fans could look at and be like, are they planting the seeds for something to happen in the future? Are they planting the seeds? That to me probably was the mentality. Like they knew they were planting the seeds for something potentially to happen. Because let's not forget, when DuckTales the movie came out, that was supposed to be the start of a whole theatrical run of Disney Afternoon animated films. And who's to say Gummy Bears wouldn't have been one of those films, and be a film that yeah. Hold on. All right, sorry about that. But like I said, they fall under that same category and everything. So and like I was saying, there were plans to do um, animated films based on Disney Afternoon, and who's to say the Gummy Bears wouldn't have been one of those films, maybe taking place years later. So, to me, even though they were not, hinted at as much, I think just the fact that you would have them always together, and having them also paired up with humans that understood them. I mean, Cubby with Calvin, and Sunni with Kala, and how and that basically gave them a reason to stick together and all that. I mean, heck, they even even in the finale, the two-part finale, King Inkthorn, when they thought, hey, everything's good now, we can go spend the night over at Castle Dunwich, at Dunwich Castle and everything, they were excited. They were cool with it. They were happy about it. So, to me, I look at the fact that, I look at the fact that, you know, I think they would have gone further with this. It would have happened. I really do. Again, they were planting the seeds, in my opinion, for something bigger to happen down the line. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. They were planning to do something with these two, but we never saw it. We never saw it. But to me, it just gave off that vibration. Again, going back to the whole Simba Nala thing from Lion King, it just gave off too much of a vibe, in my opinion. Too much of a vibe that was similar, to Simba and Nala. Like I said, going back to it, and I do apologize. That's what happens when you try to do this stuff when people are on vacation. Kind of get what happened there earlier. But anyway, like I was saying, you go back to Simba and Nala, and how it's similar to Cubbi and Sunni. It's like, you kind of see where I'm coming from. So, to me, the Hintful romantic teases in there may have not been, as prevalent, but they were there. And the same can be said for what you see in the upper left-hand corner, Gadget and Dale. Now, some would say, well, Dale got Foxglove, right? Yeah, he did. But the way Foxglove is portrayed, even in the Boom Studio comics, is she's on and off. Like, they know there's a thing between them, and all that. Dale even wants to tell her dad before, tragedy happens there, that they're kind of an item. But even outside of that, if you look at the animated show itself, outside of, the comics and everything, to me, it was very heavily implied that they wanted to go to Dale and Gadget direction. They did. They wanted to go the Dale and Gadget direction. And I don't think there's anybody listening to this, watching this, that would disagree. No one would disagree with that. And why? Because when you look at a majority of those 65 episodes, how many of those episodes can you count on one hand, which you probably can't, but how many of them had a Dale and Gadget moment? I mean, come on. I'm waiting. I'll wait. You know how many? More than I think any of us can count. I mean, it's obvious Disney was heading in that direction. And like I mentioned with Gummy Bears, had Rescue Rangers gotten the theatrical film, as originally planned, had DuckTales Treasure of the Lost Lamp not bombed or anything, and, basically paved the way for the Disney Afternoon theatrical films to happen, as I've mentioned before, Dale and Gadget would have been an item. They would have. There's no getting around that whatsoever. There's no getting around that. Because it's obvious. I mean, you take a look at how Dale was able to get more of a, kind of flirtatious, romantic kind of advancement with Gadget in the very first episode, Cattery's not included. You see how she hugs him at the end of Dale beside himself, and even kind of sweet talks, flirts with the phony Dale, the pseudo Dale, if you will, and everything. I mean, honestly, even the earlier episodes were planting the seeds, and then you get into the episodes that came after, came after, if you will, even after the To the Rescue 5-part miniseries. You take a look at how they're both kind of like lounging lazily, in a creep from the deep. That's the episode I was thinking about the other day. I just couldn't think about it when I did the live stream. But a creep in the deep. You look at how they kind of like had that same kind of persona, if you will. Then you take a look at Dale kind of flirting with her, and whether or not you look at her, reaction towards Dale and everything at the night of the Song of the Nightingale and everything. Double O Chipmunk. I mean, don't get me started on that one. We all know, how that is. What she did for Dale in that one. RoboCat. Just to name a few, if you will. It's and then of course when she thought Dale was really injured. I mean, of course, being kind-hearted, she wanted to make sure he was taken care of. But come on, she didn't have to go as far as she did, but she did. And again, it's all because of the fact that the writers, the creators of the show, were planting the seeds. I know people would say, well, Chip and Gadget would obviously have been the direction they were going to go in. Yeah, that's true. That is true. That would be the more stronger possibility. But again, you compare the two. And you tell me, who got more screen time shipping wise? Was it Chip and Gadget or was it Dale and Gadget? I'll tell you who it was. It was Dale and Gadget. And you all know it. Each and every one of you know that to be true. It's not a lie, it's a fact. You look again at a majority of the 65 episodes, and you tell me, what got more screen time, if you know what I mean. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, it's too obvious, okay? It's too obvious. But the thing is, they couldn't do anything because they would destroy that comedic dynamic of both Dale and Chip trying to go after her and to try to, outdo each other to win her heart, to get her to choose. So, again, you look at the episodes though, and there's no doubt that they were hinting at it. There's no doubt, in my opinion, no doubt whatsoever that they were hinting at it very strongly. No matter, whether you paired Dale up with Foxglove, and that's a kind of on and off thing, continuously, in the Boom Studios continuation. Doesn't matter if you paired Chip up with Tammy. Doesn't matter if you had try to tease a Gadget relationship outside of the team with Sparky. Let's be honest. Let's be totally honest here. Disney was planting the seeds for Dale and Gadget. Again, everything I've mentioned, including more, they were planting the seeds. They were. Alright? They were planting the seeds. There is no doubt. I mean, heck, even Mind Your Cheese and Q's, there's a scene, where they split up. I don't know if they split up or something like that. And we see in this one scene, as they're coming back together, who's running back towards, who's running back to regroup with the others together? Gadget and Dale. Who's the one that Gadget chose to go with her to cosplay as Raggedy Ann and Andy and everything in Dirty Rotten Diapers? Who did that? Who's the one that chose Dale? Gadget. You kind of get what I'm saying? The hints were more prevalent in this show, and in a lot of the 65 episodes. Again, it is not funny. It is not funny whatsoever. So to me, like I mentioned with Gummy Bears, as I talked about earlier, had they gone through and did the Disney Afternoon theatrical films after the Treasure of the Lost Lamp, if the Rescue Rangers would have gotten their film, in my opinion, just based on what I saw, and a lot of you can argue this, that's fine. You can disagree with it, that's fine, but you cannot deny that Dale had more moments with Gadget. And why was that? Because I'll tell you why. Because had that movie happened, and we all knew it was going to happen, had, Treasure of the Lost Lamp not bombed, we all know not only would it have happened, but we cannot deny that we all know something that we've been waiting for would have occurred too, and that's Gadget choosing who she'd be with, and there's no doubt in that film she would have chose to be with Dale. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. So you can't disagree with that whatsoever. And here's the thing, Disney was always notorious for doing this in the Disney afternoon shows. I mean, the most obvious afterwards, I don't have no image of it here, but Baloo and Rebecca. I mean, come on, obviously we knew something was going to happen between the two, or at least be strongly hinted at, I mean, the people even said that they based Baloo and Rebecca's relationship off, the relationship of Sam Malone and Rebecca Dollison from Cheers. I mean, how more straightforward of inspiration for two characters interacting with each other can you get than those two who actually had a relationship in the Cheers series? I'm just saying. And then, of course, you look at Darkwing Duck, even though it wasn't strongly hinted at, you can tell that, they were planting the seeds for something to happen with Honker and Gosling in years to come. They just didn't have time or anything to really say, okay, let's put something together that has Gosling kind of affectionately show, Honker, more affection than she's ever shown anybody, but we never got that. I mean, who's to say in the Wonderful Leaf Christmas episode that they weren't planning to maybe have her kiss Honker on the cheek under the mistletoe? We don't know that. It could have happened. And then, of course, like I said, you look at things like Goof Troop. Even though Peg was married to Pete in this, it's obvious she had a thing for Goofy. And you can't tell me that they didn't have ideas going through their minds like, okay, how can we hint, or how can we really strongly suggest she has a thing for Goofy? And there are moments in Goof Troop that shows she had a thing for Goofy even back in high school, but her heart obviously belonged to Pete. And, well, I guess we all know what happened there. But you see what I'm saying, right? Disney is notorious for doing this. They are. And do they follow through on it? Yeah, sometimes they do. I mean, Bonkers, obviously, we knew him and Fawn were a thing, so they had to follow through on that in some occasions. I mean, the end of Casablancas, the end of Casablancas, I mean, come on, honestly, let's not kid ourselves there. Have you seen that episode? Or Gargoyles, of course. We all knew Goliath and Elisa were going to be an item, just based on the interaction with each other. And what happened at the end of Hunter's Moon, the season 2, season 3 finale that led into the Goliath Chronicles, which was on ABC. What happened there? I'll tell you what happened. They officially became an item. Even if you didn't watch it fully through, if you didn't watch Gargoyles fully through, you knew right from the start that's what the direction they were heading in, and they did. And there were a lot of episodes that hinted they were heading in that direction, and they followed through. Another Disney example, Kim Possible. Everybody knew from the start Kim and Ron were going to be an item. It didn't matter how much you played it off, you knew it was going to happen. And when they did that one episode where her and Shigo got, hit with this emotion ray or whatever, you knew that was just a tipping of the iceberg of a little hint, a tipping of the iceberg, if you will, of what was to come. And it happened. You know what I'm saying? It happened. Look, you can deny that, with Dale and Gadget and Rescue Rangers, it wouldn't have happened. But you cannot deny that there was too many hints on that show not to imply that it wouldn't have. So to me, there was too much there to prove otherwise. Another show, and you see it right there, right at the second row, the second row from the left to the middle. Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Satayam. even if you watched the first episode, Heads or Tails, or Supersonic, depending on where you were. I saw Supersonic. You knew him and Sally were going to be an item. You knew there was something there between them besides just friendship, growing up together, and all that. You knew there was something there, and throughout season 1 they hinted at it, and then of course season 2 they really just took off with it, and the rest is history. I mean, the middle picture in the second row pretty much tells the whole story. And even if you didn't watch the show all the way through, let's be honest, who here on YouTube or who here listening on the podcast did not watch Sonic SatAM all the way through? Even if you didn't, or you missed a few episodes, you knew these two were going to be a couple. You knew it. It was just built that way. I mean, even if Heads or Tails was the first episode you saw, and they were, and the characters were presented in the original early designs that you would see in the early issues of Archie Comics, the Pink Sally and all that, you knew him, and you knew even then Sonic and her were an item, just based on Sonic trying to sing a song for her, them walking off together at the end. I mean, come on, honestly. No one is going to sit in their chair watching this on their television, watching this on their phone, watching this on the computer, listening to this on the Spotify, which, by the way, you can follow my BW Rosas discussions on, which would be greatly appreciated. Nobody can deny that even if you didn't watch all the episodes, and the only episodes you saw were the Heads or Tails pilot, and then maybe a few here in between, nobody can deny that even from that pilot, they knew exactly what was going to happen between Sonic and Sally. They cannot deny that. And again, that middle picture there says it all. It says it all. And then if you want another show for an example of a hintful romantic teases, or at least following through, or at least alluding to it happening, look on the right. Look on the right of the second row in the upper right hand corner. On the right. Rarity and Spike. Now I've been down this rabbit hole a lot, so has everybody else. But let's be honest. Whether you like the Rarity pairing, or you don't, or you're kind of mixed about it, you cannot deny that they did not heavily imply that there was something more than friendship between these two. You cannot deny that. You cannot. I mean, yeah, there was a cooling off period, between, seasons 3 and I would say season 7. There was a cooling off period to where you would have moments here and there, like in season 5's Castle Sweet Castle and so on. You had your moments. But, nobody can deny that, previous to that and even after season 7, it wasn't heavily implied that these two, were more than friends, or there was something more than friendship there. I mean, Best Gift Ever, one of its plots was the main plot was the heartwarming helper, their version of Secret Santa. Nobody can deny that one of the story plots of that Secret Santa, a scenario in the special, one of the story plots or subplots was Spike finding a gift for Rarity. Even after he kind of used his dragon mannerisms to trick trade, if you will, Fluttershy into changing, into trading names, all that. Afterwards, you cannot deny what was going on, because part of the plot, Spike's story for the plot, sub-arc for the plot, was him trying to find a gift for Rarity, and then making it himself, or at least trying to, and then the end result was giving her a song, which his version of the true meaning of gifting was more romantically based, while Twilight basically took over the rest and made it more about friendship. But the way Spike sang it to Rarity was, that was his way of, the way he sang it to her was basically, his way of telling her, I love you. I love you, and I always, and I always will. That was his own way of doing it. That's why his true gift the true gift of giving portion from him sounded more romantic. And then, of course, the imagery there. You know, the sparkles in her eyes. I mean, we all know that sparkles in a woman's eyes in stories, and I say it with all due respect, no offense, usually means romance. Usually means, they now understand. Okay? I mean, there's no denying that. There's no denying that whatsoever. And nobody here, like I said, on YouTube, nobody listening on Spotify or places like Spotify can deny that. Nobody can. And then, of course, you look at the final season. I mean, come on. Drag and Drop was pretty much, a Rarity and Spike episode, and it kind of resolved the issue there, but the way it ended was in an open-ended kind of thing. Like, it still kept things, pretty much, open to interpretation, to where you can think, okay, they're now just going to be good friends, but it's open, and you're open to that interpretation. But you also look at it like, okay, they might be becoming something more now. Like, again, the way Drag and Drop ended it was open ended. The way it's ending, basically open to interpretation, to where you can think, okay, they're just good close friends now. Well, on the other hand, you can think they're finally becoming an item. And then, of course, you look at the finale, and them confronting Chrysalis or fighting against her. Their combined power to get against her, combining their powers, the fire and Spike's fire and Rarity's magic. I mean, come on, the writers know what they were doing. And then you look at the endings. You look at some of the moments in the song. The song "Magic of Friendship." You see the some of the moments there with Rarity, like looking up at Spike or standing close to Spike and all that, and, throughout the song, those moments. And let's be honest, the creative staff knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. Heck, even in the 200th episode, when Spike and Fluttershy reunite with Rainbow Dash and Rarity, Rarity's the first one to notice Spike. Ike and Fluttershy, coming out of that hidden entranceway, coming out of that hidden entranceway, if you will. She's kind of arguing a little bit with Rainbow Dash, and then she's like, "Oh, hello, Spike." Like, she basically does that. She's arguing with Rainbow Dash about opening too many levers that could lead to traps or whatever. And then she turns her head for a second, going like, "Oh, hello, Spike." And then as she's talking again, it suddenly dawns on her, like, "Spike, Fluttershy," and there you go. Again, the writers knew, the creative staff, no matter who the writers were, they knew. Either Megan McCarthy, who was one of the head executive producers after Lauren Faust and before Nicole Dubuque, she knew what they were doing. Nicole Dubuque, mostly. Let's be honest, mostly knew what they were doing. So yeah, I mean, if you want a good example, recent example of strong romantic teases, if not, pretty much straight up saying, yeah, these two are more than just friends, then you look no further than Spike and Rarity and My Little Pony. I mean, you can even see it in G5 with Queen Haven and Alphabet Little. Like, it's pretty much confirmed they're an item. Whether or not that's, whether or not they, what I'm trying to say is, in G5, Queen Haven and Alphabet Little, it's pretty much confirmed that they're an item, somewhat, if you will. And you can kind of tell that there's also something between Hitch and Zip, but we don't know exactly what that's going to be. But they're also hinting like Hitch and Pip, and it's like, they know what they're doing. Like, they're going to figure out, okay, who's going to be more of the popular choice for someone like Hitch if they go that route. But again, you look at Friendship is Magic, the writers knew what they were doing, and they said, you want a good example of a romance, that's not, pretty much in your face, but it's very subtle, between two characters, especially the main cast, Spike and Rarity, no, no questions no questions asked on that, if you know what I mean. But then you look at another character, and you look at the bottom left. You look at the bottom left, if you will, and and despite the fact that I may not be very fond of the show, I will admit it's got some good characters. Sandy Cheeks, I think, is a good character, but nobody can deny that from the very first episode, or the very first episode of the very first appearance of Sandy Cheeks, no one can deny that this has been one of the strongest Hintful romantic teases in the entire Spongebob verse, if you know what I mean. The entire Spongebob inverse, universe, whatever you want to call it. Nobody can deny it. Nobody. I mean, that bottom left-hand picture comes from a special or something like that in one of the more recent seasons. And even though that was part of a play, why would they go that far? Is what I'm saying. Why would they go that far? Even if it's part of a play. Because the writers know that since the beginning, fans have been wanting to see Sandy and SpongeBob together. You can come out and you can come out with your Nickelodeon, Paramount, the creators, whatever. You can come out and say, well, SpongeBob kind of is on the other side of things. He kind of has eyes for the other side of things. And that's fine if you want to be with the times. But I think a lot of fans, when they hear something like that, they're like, oh, they're just doing that to troll us and mess with us, because they know exactly who SpongeBob should be with. And they will point specifically at Sandy. I mean, if you look at the first SpongeBob movie, they gave Patrick a freaking love interest in that princess character, or whatever her name was. And, and it's pretty much, been teased and trolled about that, SpongeBob and Patrick are, more than friends towards each other. But again, people will say, oh, that's just a troll doll. They're just trolling us. And that's not official. That's not canon, because they know that the creators know they want to see Sandy and SpongeBob. They know that. And it's been something that's built up since the beginning of the show. And you look at some of the episodes earlier on at that time, like when SpongeBob is trying to go over to her house of flowers to try to maybe confess his feelings or whatever. You see it there. Again, you see it in this image from whatever special it was with them in a play where they're acting out like they're going to get married. And then you see the fan art. It's like Nickelodeon. It's like Nickelodeon. They know. The people behind SpongeBob at Nickelodeon, they know fans want to see them together. And they're waiting for that moment. They are waiting for that moment. Whenever SpongeBob comes to an end, this official show, whenever it comes to an end, basically no more movies. Well, maybe it's just regulated to movies and 44-minute specials or whatever. But whenever the regular series, episodic series comes to an end, people are going to want it to end with SpongeBob and Sandy becoming an item. They know that. Nickelodeon knows that. They know fans are going to want that, and they will tease and they will troll and they will say, "Oh, well, SpongeBob's more on this. SpongeBob has eyes for more of the other gender and everything." And it's like you can troll all you want, you can tease all you want, you can try to throw people off all you want. People know, even people that are not fans of SpongeBob, and I'm not a fan. I'll be straight up honest with you. I'm not a fan, but I have seen enough SpongeBob because my nephews and my nephews grew up on it and everything, and my sister my older sister likes it. But I know enough I know enough about this show. I've seen enough about this show to know that if there is anything I would be a fan of, if there's anything I would be a fan of, of this show, of these characters, is to see SpongeBob get the girl. And we all know that girl is Sandy. And we all know Sandy pretty much feels the same way about him, but it's her character, it's her personality, her pride that would prevent her from doing anything about it. So, to me, we all know, we all see it, if you will, with our own eyes. We all see it, we all know it, and that this is what's meant to be. And again, the people, the writers, the creative stuff, they know it. They know it. They're just not doing anything about it yet until they feel the time is right. And whenever that time will be, I guarantee you, even if you're not a true straight up fan or watcher of SpongeBob, or you've never been, period, there is no doubt that once you hear the news that this is going to happen, that SpongeBob and Sandy will finally become an item. No teasing, no teasing, no waltzing around it. When you hear that moment's going to happen, in a Pacific episode of Special, you will tune in. Whether you are a straight up fan, you're not a fan, you've never seen an episode or whatever, but your kids have, or your nieces and grandkids have, you'll straight up want to see this happen. You will. So, to me, SpongeBob and Sandy's relationship in SpongeBob is another example of Hintful romantic teases in animation, in cartoons. And now to close us off, let's talk about another. Let's talk about another here. As I check something, let's talk about another. Let's talk about Elora. I think that's her name. Elora, and Spyro. Okay. Elora and Spyro. And a lot of people have said, even, I don't know if it's back when, the first, because here's the thing, the images you see, or at least this image on the bottom left hand, comes from the Reignited Trilogy series, a Reignited Trilogy game, which is all first three Spyro games and the one remastered. And, a lot of people have said, I don't know if they said this back in the mid to late 90s when the first games came out or not, but everybody has pretty much said, even now with the reignited ones, that Elora, that's her name, Elora and Spyro are meant to be. That Elora's actions, towards Spyro pretty much hint that she has a thing for him. But he's just not seeing it. He's just not really seeing it. He might have an idea, but he's not seeing it. And a lot of people would say, well, doesn't he have a girlfriend already? Here's the thing. Animated shows that are based on games are different from the games themselves. If you want a good example of that, look at Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't think you would have to find any more evidence than that. But you look at the the difference between a video game and a show based on it. And there's always going to be difference in opinion, difference in character presentation, and what goes on between both formats. So even in the animated series, if Spyro has a girlfriend in Cinder, it doesn't mean he has a girl. It doesn't mean Cinder's his girlfriend in the games. In the games, he's kind of like a bachelor. Like he's not. He's more about being a noble warrior, trying to do what's right. And because he's so focused on that, he's oblivious to the fact that someone like Elora, Elora actually likes him, and probably more than he expects. I mean, the fact that he looks at Hunter and Bianca becoming an item, at the end of the third game, through the remastered version and the original, and saying the line that he did, and then here you have Elora coming up to him and saying, hey, take a break and let's watch the fireworks, and then kind of getting close to him, and you see his little sidekick, if you will, winking up at kind of breaking the fourth wall, flying up, breaking up, and then flying up and looking at the camera, breaking the fourth wall, winking at the audience like, yep, you know what's about to happen. Like he's giving that wink of, yep, Spyro's gonna fall in love now too with Elora. So, you look at the Elora Spyro thing in the games through the remastered version or even the original, but mostly the remastered, and a lot of people will come out and say that it's pretty much evident that there's something there besides a friendship between them. I mean, even the fan art that you see right here, that's kind of like SFM fan art, that's based on the CGI, the remastered CGI and all that. It's like, come on, it's like even these people can see it. And there are some SFM animations out here on YouTube based on the same, CGI renderings from the remaster game that kind of play along with that as well. You see, it doesn't matter how you feel about, a pairing, if you will. If the primary, I guess you could say, the primary, what's the word I'm looking for? If the primary showcase, if you will, the primary media, is showing this, in their world, outside of any of the adaptations, then it pretty much tells you that the people that are behind the game, that also probably are behind, they're also backing up the series, the animated series, but those behind the game, the primary source, if you will, it kind of tells you that they are in favor of an Elora-Spyro relationship. They are. And there's no getting around that. I mean, just the interactions between Elora and Spyro, and even through the clips that you find here on YouTube. Like towards the end of it, it's like Spyro, you can kind of tell he's getting it, but he's not fully getting it. That, okay, he can see that Elora likes him more than just as a friend, but he's not truly grasping it. And then the ending, of course, with them watching the fireworks, and the winking by his little psychic, kind of hints at the fact that, yeah, there's something there. There's something now there between them besides just a friendship and all that. I mean, the fact she, cuddles up to him a little bit more and everything, before his little sidekick winks at the audience and all that, kind of giving the indication that, yep, like Hunter, fell in love with Bianca and vice versa, Spyro and Elora pretty much doing the same thing. So, again, you can, deny, you can deny that there's no evidence, of that happening, but it's too evident. Like the moments and everything, the interactions and everything are there, just like everything I've mentioned. So even in the world of video games, with even remastered video games with CGI animation that could pass almost for theatrical, if not streaming television animation, as long as the hints are there, exactly the direction that the directors, the creators, want to go in with these characters. And if there's a Spyro 4, if there's a fourth Spyro game, which people are hoping for, there is no doubt in my mind, and I don't play Spyro that much. I'm probably going to be playing it as much as I can once I get the remastered trilogy soon. But you cannot, you cannot sit here and deny the fact that if a fourth game happens, for Spyro, that they would not put Elora and Elora, I should not Elora, but Elora and Spyro. You cannot deny that they would not put Elora and Spyro together as an item. They did it with Hunter and Bianca in the third film. At the end of that, there's no doubt they probably wouldn't do the same for Spyro and Elora in the fourth Spyro game if that happens, because there's too much evidence between there's too much evidence from what I've seen and understand throughout all the first Spyro game, all first three Spyro game movies, not to say this is where they're going. There's just too much evidence not to say that this is the direction they're going in, game wise, and not overall franchise wise. Because again, just like Sonic the Hedgehog, just because Sonic had a comic book And Sonic said to him, where he had a love interest in Sally, he didn't have that in the games. So Spyro, just because he might have a love interest in Cinder in the show, doesn't mean he's going to have her as a love interest in the game. Spyro 4 is a completely different environment, completely different animal, and that means that Elora and Spyro, there's no, people are probably thinking this as well. Spyro 4, if that game happens, Elora and Spyro, just like Hunter and Bianca at the end of the third, will become an item. And pretty much the ending of the third, with them watching the fireworks and that little friend, that little sidekick of his winking at the audience, kind of gives off those vibes. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to come on here and do a more extensive video on the topic I talked about in my 44th birthday live stream I did on Tuesday, which you can watch here. Which you can watch here on YouTube. There will be there are chapters in that, and if I do chapters here, you will know. But by the timestamps, they will be in the description if I do them. But yeah, I just wanted to come on here, do this more extensive video, courtesy of OBS Studios. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Do you agree with anything I had to say here? And until next time, I will talk to you all later.